Hey folks, welcome back to Max Nave Horsemanship again. Today's video is going to be a little bit different because I'm going to spend most of the time behind the camera. You're not going to see much of me because, well, I'm going to show you some stuff. We're going to go take a little tour of the facility here, and I'm going to show you a few of the things that we do to look after horses in the wintertime, because that was actually a subject that somebody suggested, is winter horse care for horses. You know, whether or not we have heated facilities for them, whether we keep them in box stalls, all that sort of thing. And I'm going to take you on a little tour and show you exactly what we do. I'm going to show you some of the horses that are out here that are wintering. And before I go any further, I'm going to say a couple things. First off, when it comes to winter, our idea of winter here is quite a bit different than what some of you may know. For some of you, the chance of even seeing snow is pretty slim. So in that respect, you know, your idea of winter and what we have for winter here is quite a bit different. Now, one of the things we're going to start with is you have to remember, horses are not humans. We're wusses when it comes to the cold compared to horses. Horses are much, much tougher than most people think they are. And the pampering that a lot of people give them in the wintertime is totally unnecessary. Now, there's one lady, very smart, knows horses quite well, has trained and competed, and if I mention the name, you'd probably know who I'm talking about. But she also had a blog, a Q&A blog on her website, and one of the questions she got asked was, when is it going to be too cold for me to ride my horse in the winter? And her answer to that was quite simply, it'll be way too cold for you long before it's too cold for the horse. That's how tough horses are. But I'm going to take you on a little tour here and show you some of the things that we do to look after horses in the winter and to show you what horses can endure. Now, I'll also mention that where I live, winter is pretty extreme when it comes to temperatures. We don't have an insane amount of snow, but it is actually possible for below freezing temperatures for close to half of the year. And it won't be that temperature all the time. I mean, even in just a couple of weeks ago, no, actually it wasn't even that long, about a week ago, we had a particularly warm day, but we had strong winds, which melted a lot, dried up a lot, but unfortunately the downside of that is when things melt, and then in the following night it actually dropped back down to about -30, and well, everything's frozen in ice now, so that's something we'll discuss too. But I'm going to just give you an, you know, just to get, like I said, temperatures in the wintertime can get as low as -40, and I'm talking Celsius, but at -40, Celsius and Fahrenheit are the same. Very cold. And typical winter temperatures are, well, -20 to 30. And just to give you a point of reference, -20 Celsius is the equivalent of -4 Fahrenheit. For those of you to the south of me that are in Fahrenheit, just to give you a rough idea of what we're talking about here. We're talking cold. And I'm going to show you some of the things that we do and what the horses can endure. Be with you in a minute. Now, one of the things that is quite important at any time of the year is water. And I'll show you a couple of the things that we've done here to make that work a little better for us. Now, this water trough right here is a rather large one. It's a little bit bigger than we need, but it works good, and it'll hold a lot of water, so you got a good reservoir. You're not going to run out, because keeping horses properly watered, very important, prevents colic and a lot of other things, particularly in the wintertime, because horses can dehydrate in the winter. A lot of people don't realize that water is important in the wintertime. And what we've got here is, like I said, it's a rather large trough, and a portion of it is actually covered to help keep the heat in. And there's even some insulation down in there over top of the water. And there is an electric heater in here too, down in there. That's a 1500 watt heater. They're thermostatically controlled, so it just keeps the water just warm enough that it doesn't freeze. And as you can see, this water's not frozen. And that's just one of the many things that we do is all our water troughs are heated. But to get water to them, that's another thing. Over here, we have something that a lot of you are going to be familiar with. It's called a no-freeze hydrant. Now, this one we've actually taken a step further, and we've wrapped it, and it's got insulation, and there's actually heat tape in there just to make absolute sure. Because what can happen with these things, if somebody is careless and they don't shut it off completely, because there's a handle on here, you'll see it goes up quite a ways before it actually starts doing anything. And if you don't lower it completely when you're done, what it does is there's actually a rod that goes down the middle of the pipe, and the valve is way, way underground. The valve that actually controls this thing is way underground, and when you put the handle all the way down, it allows all the water to drain out of the pipe down below the frost line into sand and gravel. That's the way you install these things. And it drains itself out so that it doesn't freeze up. And that way, even when it's well below freezing, you still have water. Now, I'm just going to give you an idea how, if you've never seen one of these work, I'll just put the hose into the water trough, and we'll turn it on for you. And you'll notice that it takes a little while before that water starts to flow, because it actually has to travel up quite a bit of pipe before it gets up here. And we're just going to let this one go for a minute. It doesn't matter. We can easily fill up the water trough a little. It won't hurt nothing. And but I just want to give you an idea how it works. And then when we shut it off, if you watch, it's going to shut off long before the handle gets down. There. Right about there. See, the handle's not down all the way, but when you push it all the way down, it pushes the rod down, which opens the valve. It's a two-way valve. The valve opens up and drains the pipe out into the underground below the frost line. Now, just to make sure this thing doesn't freeze up, I'll just put that hose back down there like that so it can drain out completely too, because these are all little things you got to, cautions that you have to take in the wintertime to prevent freeze-ups, because if that hose was left up, enough water can accumulate in it that it will block it off with ice. And we don't want that. We want a reliable water source, very important. And what you got to realize, too, is the amount of money that we spend doing stuff like this, because running 1,500-watt heaters, we have 3 water troughs with those heaters in them. That's a lot of power. That's expensive right there. These no-freeze hydrants, they are not cheap either. The installation cost on them is also insane. Although this particular one, I actually dug down to the valve myself by hand. Let me tell you, that was a lot of work. And there's a underground line down below the frost line, which here is, I don't know, it's at least 10 feet down or more. And it's trenched all the way across the arena, all the way out to the other barn. It ties into the other water line. So that trenching was done by machine. People were paid to do it. That was many thousands of dollars just for one water source. And this is just one of them. We've got 3 of them here, one by each water trough. And I'll talk to you about them a little bit more as we get to them. I'll show you them and some of the problems that we have, and how you can prevent problems. Now, one of the other things that people often inquire about is, do you keep horses in stalls in the wintertime? Keep them in sheltered? Well, here's our box stalls. As you can see, that one's empty. That one's empty. So's that one. So's that one. And that one. And, oh, there's a horse in this one. Well, there's kind of a reason there's a horse in this one. You'll notice there's a doorway here. It goes outside to a very small pen. There's 2 of them like that. And basically these are not so much box stalls as shelters. Hi, buddy. Nice guy. And the only reason this one is in here is he's actually recovering from an injury. No big deal. He's actually doing remarkably well. He's been checked on by the vet a couple times, and he's doing well. But moving on down the line, another box stall. Oh, somebody's storing some straw in this one. This one's empty. Again, this one is empty, and that door actually can be opened, but currently that pen is outside is open to, there's 2 of them connected now, so that one's not even needed, but it can be used as a box stall. This one, more storage. And another one here, you'll see there's a door going outside into a pen out there. So these stalls are basically just shelters is all they're being used for. There's no heat in here whatsoever. These stalls are nothing more than shelter. Before we go on to the other barn, though, talk about these stalls a little bit. I actually prefer these ones over the other barn. We have more than one barn here, by the way. And because, well, as you can see, the lighting's a lot better. There's all along the top, there's clear plastic up there so that the light shines in quite good. And one of the other advantages of this one is, hey, buddy, get to see him again. Down at this end, there's actually a plug-in so that if you ever need to have a vet come out and they like to be able to see what they're doing when they're working, this is my stall of preference for that, is we'll use this one. And just on the other side of that petition there is a plug-in and we can put in additional lighting. And there is actually lights in here as well, but in the daytime you don't even need them unless there's special circumstances. But in spite of the fact there's all these empty stalls, I should also mention, they do get used though, but for very short periods of time. Usually they will get used while people are grooming the horse, giving it their supplements, saddling it up, that sort of thing. Not very long that horses are ever in here. We don't keep horses indoors, and that's going to come to a lot of people as a bit of a shock. But now we're going to go off into the other barn and show you the stalls in there. Hey, again, more stalls. This one here is more of a used as a long-term stall, sort of. Horses don't live in here. It's only for ones that have medical attention or whatever, and that's why there's all the straw down in here. But you'll see there's also another fairly good-sized one over here. It has a heated water bucket in it as well. That's the only thing that's heated in here is we have heaters for the water to keep it from freezing. More stalls, empty, 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 empty. There is not a single horse in here. Okay, and this barn is not heated either, and probably can't see real well. It's a little dark in here, but it's not heated at all. And one of the reasons for that is that, while horses don't live in here to start with, they're also a lot tougher. And if you get them in here or their shelter, man, this is luxury to them as far as they're concerned. And it's actually not healthy at all for the horse to be in and out of heat. That's actually very unhealthy. So if you've got a heated arena that you ride your horse in or a heated barn, keep it as cool as possible that you can withstand. Don't worry about the horse. The horse will be fine. If you need to have heat, it's for you, not the horse. Believe me. It's actually far better off for the horse to not have heat. And let's move along. Well, again, some more water for the horses. This device here is what's called an automatic water bowl. Hi, sweetheart. And it has a small heater underneath it, a very small one. I don't know how many watts, maybe 300 watts, something like that. And a float mechanism that ensures, excuse me, dear, get your nose out of the way. And a float okay, that's it, I'm backing up. Float mechanism in there that will ensure that there's always water in there when the horses drink it. And there's just enough heat that even though you'll see some ice on it and that, it's always open and the horses can always get a drink of water. Now, moving along over here, another water trough. This one is slightly larger than a standard one, and this actually has a heater in it as well. But for some particular reason, we don't know why, this one tends not to stay as clear, but this is also a slightly larger than normal trough, and it's not covered at all, so it can freeze up. And you'll notice over there and over there a couple of open doors. Those are the ones you saw from the inside that lead out here to these pens out here that have horses in them. Oh, there's the other one. He's laying down over there. Hey, see, there's a perfect example right there. Horses don't care about the cold. He's laying in a pile of snow. He doesn't care. Oh, and again, over by that one, another one of those no freeze hydrants. That one actually may get reinstalled. It's not quite as low as it should be, but it seems to be working okay anyhow, so It might get left. Who knows? And yet another water trough with a heater in it. And as you can see, there's a little bit of ice around the edge, but the water is open. The horses can drink. I don't know if you can see the heater down in there or not, how well it shows up on the camera, but there's another 1500 watt heater in there, and another no freeze hydrant that is used to fill this one too. So, you know, there's just in the water alone, we're looking at thousands of dollars, because these hydrants aren't cheap. The power it costs to run the heaters themselves, the water troughs, and the many, many, many feet or meters, whatever you want to call it, the great length of underground water lines that run to each and every one of these. And so far we've only talked about water. Now, one of the common things in the wintertime that people get concerned with is they figure the horses need a lot of feed, special feed, extra feed to keep them warm. I've talked about this before in another video. And right here is what the horses here eat. Well, most of them anyhow. Hay. These big round bales, well, a lot of you aren't going to need them if you only got one or two horses. You wouldn't use one probably, but they are a lot more convenient when you have multiple horses. Even if you only have a few horses, one of those bales will last 3 weeks, maybe a month, depending on the horses. But this is typically what they get fed, and each one of these are about 1,500 pounds, and well, they'll munch them down in a hurry. But when it comes to keeping your horse warm in the wintertime, right here, this is the best stuff. This is the best thing there is for generating heat in a horse. Hay. Not grains, no supplements, nothing else. Hay. Hay generates more heat energy while it's being digested than anything else that the horse can possibly eat. So don't think that you got to give your horse extra special treatment. I mean, if you look over here, well, evidence of what they get. They make a mess, man. They like throwing the stuff all over. Then the wind catches it, and it is perpetually windy around here. And as you can see, here's a couple more horses just laying around. They don't care. It's a nice day as far as they're concerned. It's actually only slightly below freezing today. Oh, he hears my voice. He's going to get up. That's actually one of my own horses. And yeah, we have several bales of this lovely hay that they like. Hi, buddy. Nice guy. He is. He's a nice guy. So, yeah, as you can see, nice and fuzzy, nice and shaggy, and no blanket. In fact, if you look around here, you'll see quite a few horses. You're not getting to see all of them because there's some here, some there. They're all over the place. And the only one that has a blanket is way down there. And she has some health issues. And, well, I'm not even convinced that the blanket is necessary for her even, but whatever. The owner feels better putting a blanket on her because of her health issues, so she has a blanket on. And, remember, temperatures here are severe. It can get minus 40. That doesn't happen too often, but minus 20 to 30 range is not unusual in the wintertime. And as you can see, none of these horses have blankets, and they're all doing just fine. They're all healthy, happy, fat, and well, occasionally even a little on the lazy side. Lay on the ground in the snow or whatever it takes. They don't care. Even the seniors. There's another one over there. She's about 28 years old. No blanket on her either. And the cold doesn't bother her. And in fact, as you can see, very little for shelter out here. And I won't say there isn't any, though. I'm going to show you some in a minute. And this is yet one of the other things that we do in the wintertime, or that you should do in severe climate, is a little bit of shelter for the horses. You got to have something that is going to, well, give them a little bit of a break. I'm just going to show you what we have here, what they use. It's actually interesting because they don't even use the shelters themselves that often. But, when it comes to shelter, one of their favorite places is this area up in here in the corner. Even though the wind comes in this direction quite a bit, it provides them just enough shelter. There's a couple of sheds on the other side of that fence, and then we got the one barn right there. And it's not unusual on extreme days. You'll see a half a dozen or more horses standing up in this corner here. And, well, that's their idea of shelter. And yet another one of the places they like to get shelter is along the end of this building. This is actually part of the arena. They'll stand up along here, right against the wall, along this wall here. And that provides them with just enough shelter, keeps them happy. Hey, buddy, how you doing? Now, we do have actual shelters, too. There's one here and another one over there. They're the only two that are accessible to the main herd, but as you can see, they're not using them. They're standing around outside. It's very rare, actually, that they even go in them. Well, yeah, as usual, empty. Nobody in there. I think I saw some legs in the other one. So I think there's a horse in the other one. So it's, we do, yep, a horse. One horse in this one. And, so it's not like we don't provide shelter for them. They have shelter. They just choose not to use it. Now, actually, when it comes on the subject of blankets, you'll notice there's a couple over there that got blankets on them. I don't think that's necessary, but that's not my call. That was somebody else's choice. Those are thoroughbreds, and thoroughbreds do, in fact, tend to grow a little less winter coat. So somebody thought it was a good idea to put some blankets on them. So those ones are the only ones that are blanketed, is the thoroughbreds. The rest of the herd, no. They're all nice and fuzzy. They don't care. And, another thing that's kind of interesting when it comes to sheltering is it's actually very rare to even see them in the shelters. A lot of times they'll just stand beside them, along the edge of the wall. That's enough to break the wind to make them happy. Like I said, horses are much tougher than you think they are. Now, you'll notice how over here the snow's drifted up a bit. It's kind of deep. It's not bad. Well, not horrible, but I'll talk about that a bit too, because one of the things that is actually quite important is movement. I mentioned that movement's important. Horses have to be able to move, and in spite of the fact that these pens are not huge, it's still important that the horses have room in them to move around. And even though, like I said, we don't get a ridiculous amount of snow, but we do get a lot of wind, which causes drifting, and even now there's a little bit more has drifted back in again. Not horrible, but just along the edges. But not long ago, both of these pens were just horribly full of snow. Had to actually go in there with the skid steer and clear them out enough so the horses had room to move, because, like I said, movement's important. And if you look over here on the front lawn, you can see a few snow piles. There's some more over there. They're considerably smaller than what they were because, like I said, a few days ago we had some fairly warm temperatures and high winds, and it made a lot of that disappear. But a good portion of that right there, it actually came out of these two pens here. In fact, there's another pile just behind that one. You can't see because of the angle I'm at, but there's actually two piles that big. That all came out of the two pens I just showed you. And, it's one of those things, and that required a skid steer to do. Those are expensive machines. Keeping horses in the wintertime is not cheap. There's a lot of expenses involved, and, well, this is just what you got to do. Because the two most important things is the food and the water, but next to that, very close, is movement. They got to be able to move. So you got to keep enough snow cleared out that they can move. And, well, there's different ways of doing that depending on where you live and how long the snow will last. But around here, you got to be a little vigilant because, well, it accumulates. This yard has had snow removal done several times. And right here is a perfect example of what happened here. You can see right here in front of me a very large patch of ice that's not covered with snow. Some of it's covered because of the drifting again, but this whole area it's just completely ice because of the warm temperatures that we had and high winds. Melted a lot, and then it immediately dropped back cold again, froze solid. So now, yeah, it's not fun. stuff is frozen to the ground. It's really slippery to walk on, especially when you get a little bit of fresh snow on top of it. A little snow on top of ice, man, that's dangerous stuff. And those are things you also have to be considerate of when it comes to the horses, too. You have to watch out. There's a few areas where horses do travel that there's another one of our big snow piles. And it actually goes back quite a ways, too. You can't even see how big that is. But you have to be cautious all the time when it comes to the horses that they don't slip and fall and break a leg. So more on winter keep of horses is you have to be cautious of the footing. So, there you go. A little bit on what we do around here to take care of the horses in the wintertime. And, well, they don't actually need a whole lot of special care, but like I said, you got to make sure you got water and you got to make sure you got food for them. And, oh, that big stack of bales that I showed you, that's nothing. We got a couple more piles that big. But that's because of the number of horses that we have around here. The average person is not going to need that much. But, as long as they got food all the time, that's all they need, nothing special. They don't need a lot of special care except make sure they got water, make sure they got food, and they'll do all right. You don't need a heated barn. You don't need a heated arena. In fact, those are bad for the horse. And it's so seldom that a horse is ever in here for any length of time. There would absolutely be no point in heating it because that would require insulating the structure, making sure the doors actually seal properly and things like that. It would cost many tens of thousands of dollars. Would not be practical or sensible for the little time that a horse is actually in here. And the vets around here, they're kind of used to working in the cold in the wintertime, so it's not a big deal to them. Although they do appreciate it if they can get some shelter and the place is relatively clean, which this one is actually due for a cleaning right now. So please excuse a little bit of a mess in here. It's not as nice as it usually is. But there you go. Had somebody actually suggest doing a video on horse keep in the wintertime and the things that we do and what horses can endure and that sort of thing. And so, I don't know, I'm sure I probably forgot something, probably something important too, but fact is, it's going to be too cold for you long before it's too cold for the horse. Have a good day.